First of all, I want to extend my appreciation to the Millers for hosting this, and to everyone for coming to support Project Extreme. Obviously, you're here for us to solicit your support, and I'm sure everyone will do what they possibly can do tonight. But please remember that it's going to take more than tonight. And in the future, Project Extreme is going to need continued help in its Malachas HaKodesh. By the way, just one word that I have to say. It has nothing to do directly with Project Extreme, but tonight is Hey Shvat, which is the Yotzat of the Sfas Emes. And of course, you know that it's a minhag of the Hasidim, that Motzei Shabbos to mention something about one of the tzaddikim, which is a skula for everything. And especially on the Yotzat to say something about the Sfas Emes. The Sfas Emes says on today's Parsha that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu that He's going to take the Bnei Yisrael out biyod chazaka. And the question is, what's the biyod chazaka? Well, Hashem needs extra energy. Well, it's shayach yod chazaka. And so the Sfas Emes says that inasmuch as the Bnei Yisrael at that time were in a very low madrega, so much so that when it came to Kriyas Yamsuf, the Malachim were saying, why are you saving the Bnei Yisrael? They're no better than the Mitzrayim. So Sfas Emes says, biyod chazaka is the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to use extra energy to overcome the katrigim, overcome the objections of those who said that the Bnei Yisrael were not deserving. Unfortunately, there are some people who consider that there are some population that are not deserving. And yes, it's very bad when somebody goes off the derech. And when a child goes off the derech and doesn't keep kashrus and gets into all kinds into drugs and all kinds of horrible self-destructive practices. And some people turn away from them. And what the Sfas Emes says is, biyod chazaka. There is no one that's undeserving. And everyone who can be saved, should be saved. And when we save these youngsters whose families sometimes have rejected them, when we save these youngsters, this is the Nasik Shutaf HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's when we become partners with HaKadosh Baruch Hu in saving people who are, quote, non-deserving. Somebody asked me before, what do you do with a youngster who's having a problem with getting up every morning and saying that I believe Mashiach is going to come? You know, it's been so thousands of years, right? Mashiach isn't here yet, so now he's going to come. He didn't come to the Vilna Gaon, he didn't come to the Pnei Yeshua, he didn't come to Chaim Briska, right? He didn't come to the Rogachover, he didn't come to all the tzaddikim, right? So now he's going to come to me. But if we take a look in the Gemara, the last mission in Soita, which is a frightening Mishnah. And it tells us what the scene in the world is going to be like before Mashiach comes. Beikus Mashiach, right in the steps before Mashiach comes, at the end of time. Chutzpah Yaske. There's going to be an enormous amount of chutzpah. The Yoker Yamer, there's going to be a inflation. A Gefetit and Pirya. There'll be abundant wine. The Hayayin B'Yoker. But the wine is going to be expensive because there are going to be so many drinkers. Right? So they predicted the alcoholism. They didn't know too much about drugs, or they would have predicted that. And then it goes on with all the kinds of things that would happen. Then it comes to say, Ben min avilav. Sons will insult their parents, their father. Bas kama be'ima. A daughter will get up against her mother. Kala b'chamoisa. The daughter-in-law will rebel against her mother-in-law. Oy ve'ish. A person's enemies are going to be anshe boise. are going to be the members of his family. And what can we do? Who can we depend on? We can only depend on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, if anybody is wondering whether Mashiach is ready to come now, right, you can see that all of these predictions have been fulfilled. So it wasn't in the generation of the great tzaddikim, because that they didn't have this social deterioration, but it's in our generation. So we can believe, you can tell this young man, right, that the time is now for Mashiach. But by the same token, we are suffering this enormous degeneration among our youngsters. And they come from the most wonderful homes where you would never suspect that there is so much corruption in the kids. And somebody once said, not to think that the Jewish population is immune to anything. Because anything that's happening in the non-Jewish population and in the non-Frum population is happening within our Frum community as well. Or Hashem, it's not in the same numbers, right? But every case is a olam. Right? And if a child goes off the derech, right, it's not only the child who's going off the derech, it ruins the family. How often do I get this problem? Just happened last week. My daughter is going off the derech. She's the oldest of my 6 children. Right? What do I reject her? If I keep her in the house, does that show the other children that it's the way to go? That I'm accepting it? And if I reject her, what are the other children going to say? Because they're very close with her. Right? And if I reject her, maybe they'll go along with her. Right? I mean, these are horrendous problems. And it's not only when the boy or the girl goes off the derech that there's a problem for that child, but it's a problem for the whole family. And it says, that we have to rely on HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself says, we can't sit down in the passenger seat and tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu drive. We have to do what we can do and make every maximum effort to do it, and then we can expect this Yata Dishmaya. And this is what Project Extreme is doing. And when they say that they have an 80% success, I can testify that that is possible. I've been in the field now for 40 years, and I can tell you where success comes from. But let me give you an example as to why success can work. I don't know what went on with some of these kids, where they got their influences from. They come from homes where there is no television. They don't necessarily have immediate access to internet, but everybody gets access to the internet whether you like it or not. And the problem of the deterioration of behavior that's due to the internet is horrendous. And it affects the finest homes. So we are in a situation where there is tremendous influences on the kids. And Baruch Hashem that it isn't worse than it is. But the problem that exists is bad enough. This is what happens when you have a staff that isn't there just working for the parnasa, which of course they need. But they give themselves over, belev v'nefesh, so that the person feels that somebody genuinely cares for them. Like I said, these people come from some fine homes, but some fine homes can be very dysfunctional. A number of years ago, there was an emergency meeting called by, I don't know who called the meeting, but it was for the representatives of all the Frum communities. The Addicition, the Yeshivas, the Addicition groups, whatever. And one person got up, and he was talking in Yiddish, but he said, what do you think? In my days when I was in Yeshiva, there were no bombs around? Sure there were bombs. But I didn't associate with them. I didn't want to lose my father and mother. The problem today is that kids don't have a father and mother. The father and mother are way too busy doing other things. They can't give their attention to the kids. So the child comes over to the father. The father comes home late at night from work, right? And he's got a beeper, right? He's got a beeper and a cell phone. and he's on the phone talking to somebody, and the child comes over and says, Tati, he says, what's that? He says, I'm busy. That can happen in a very fine family. The pressure on some families is such, right, that parents don't have time to devote properly to their children. And when that happens, the children are hungry for companionship, they're hungry for somebody who will take them in, and there is a group in the street now that will take them in. Now, 50 years ago, it didn't happen. 30 years ago, that didn't happen because there was no group on the street. And if a young man in yeshiva, or a young girl in Beshanka, wanted to go off the derech, she had no place to go to. Right? So she stuck it out, or he stuck it out. And Baruch Hashem, some of them survived. That's not the case anymore. There are so many children now. Well, first of all, the population in the yeshivas and the Beshankas has increased enormously. Right? And so there are more people who drop out. But of the dropouts, they have formed a clique, and they have formed a group, and they welcome whoever comes in. Now, if you want to belong to the group that are Talmidim, right? Well, then you gotta pay the dues. You gotta be a good Talmid. You gotta be the good Talmidah. And if I don't make it, and I don't have the effort, and I don't have the success, I feel left out. I don't belong. Oh, this group in the street, you don't have to pay severe dues. All you gotta do is smoke marijuana. Right? You smoke marijuana, Mishalonu, you belong to us. And you got someplace to belong to. And these children, these young men and the women, have to find out that they belong to Klal Yisrael.